Okay, let's be honest. The leaves have blown off the trees, the decorative pumpkins are getting soft spots, and there's a whole lot of flattened, crushed, eaten, and dejected going on where you had envisioned majestic seed heads, trusses of berries, and full on fall splendor. So, how do we uncover the good, downplay the bad, and plan for better next year? How do we put lipstick on this pig? We're transitioning to the winter garden beautifully today on the Garden Mixer.
Dun, 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 dun. She's Marianne Wilburn. I'm Leslie Harris, and it's November, and she's dancing in the garden. We don't need it to look like high season, but we really want it to look good, and it can look good. And we have some ideas for you. Plus, we have two great plants for the end of this show, which is called Damn, I Wish I Had Planted That. And those should correspond exactly to when this drops, which is when, Marianne? Mid-November?
November 7th. Hello, welcome to the 7th of November, everybody. Mid to getting to late fall. No, mid-fall. I mean, fall's technically over on the 20th of December, right? So
You're making my head spin. I think we're sort of...
I'm sorry.
Mid. Yeah, definitely mid. What are you drinking?
Right. I am drinking a double-limed gin and tonic, which is going to keep me company over the next hour. And hopefully, if you're not in the garden, hands down weeding and maybe making something in the kitchen or even ironing some clothes, you can join me in that gin and tonic. All right. So we've got a lot to discuss because, frankly, my garden depressed the heck out of me when I came back to it after some time away because I hadn't naturally transitioned into that later fall season. And so consequently, I, in my head, was still judging it against the midsummer garden that I had left or the sort of late summer garden that I had left. And I think that when it comes to the fall and late fall garden, it's all about changing your attitude, right?
Oh, yeah. Your expectations have to get lower, and they have to just get different, and you have to admire that frost on the pumpkin. I mean, this sounds so lyrical. Sometimes when we see brown leaves,
Maybe.
I was trying to be lyrical. When we see brown leaves or brown anything, de-browning is the thing. We wanna get those out of the garden. If it's brown or it's down, we don't want it around. Well, that changes at this time of year, and sometimes browns can be sort of interesting. I mean, the peony that might have that slight bit of, "Oh, wow, I'm going over now, but I'll see you next spring." You might wanna chop it down. That depends on what's around it, what your mood is, where it is. But you might say, "That looks kind of, I don't know, it reminds me of what I saw before, and it's kind of withered and old like me, so I'm going to appreciate
Yeah.
it."
Sort of like my face. You can appreciate the new laugh lines around your face
Yeah, if you keep laughing.
if you keep laughing, right? And enjoying them for what they are rather than what they were. Whole new season, baby. And it is a season that's also transitioning us into the winter garden. And so we can make it look good, but we do have to relax expectations, not get too what is the word I'm supposed to use?
You're not
Persnickety?
supposed to use the one
No.
that starts with A, but
Hey, what?
punctilious is the one that you want to go for.
Punctilious
Mhm.
about the whole thing. This is not a spring garden. This is a fall garden. So let's play up those themes. Let's edit a little bit and let's have some fun and let's get some laugh lines going on it
Yeah,
because we want those.
I
We
love it.
don't want the frown lines.
We have a tiny clear-up corner before we get started. It is so small. This is mostly me being an idiot, but, when you have those things called blind daffodils, you're all excited about the foliage, it comes up all beautiful, and they don't actually bloom. That can be the cause of that can be several things, but not, like what I said last time, moisture. Generally, bulbs probably won't even sprout if they're in too much moisture because they do like dry, especially when in
Because
their
they're
dormant
dead.
season. And this it won't come up because they're dead.
Unless they're like a camassia maybe
Camassia likes
or
wet,
some other.
yeah.
Yeah, they
Not too
like
many
a
things
bit
do,
of
though.
moisture. Yeah. Yeah.
That very
So
few bulbs love that moisture thing. So anyway, the reasons that, bulbs that daffodils do come up blind is usually insufficient sunlight, they're too crowded, not too much nitrogen sometimes if they're in grass and it's being fed or, over but it's just not gonna be too much moisture. My apologies. And this isn't a clear up corner, but I wanna just talk about something that happened to Marianne a while back now as this comes out, but, our buddy Scott Berline decided that it was
do I need to be worried?
you should,
Okay.
decided that it was a good idea to interview her for Horticulture Magazine, and that came out for the month of October, yes?
For horticulture has gone to a seasonal, print copy, so I think it is for the season now of fall, which,
Oh,
as we've
well,
just
that is
talked about,
timely
is
still.
September, October, and December, so, yeah, it was a very cool article. It's very, very strange to see myself on the pages of Horticulture Magazine, I gotta say. Life goal, check.
But you've written for Horticulture Magazine, correct?
Yeah, I absolutely have. I've written for a lot of things, and the one of the things that was cool about Scott's interview was that he focused on garden writing and garden communication as a whole, and we talked about some of the ways in which it had changed, some of the ways it's the same, which are very small actually, and it gave me a chance to really start to think about the last 15, 20 years of this industry, and I think that a lot of people aren't really aware of how much it has changed for writers, and that threw me into writing that essay for Garden Rant called Opportunity or Erasure, navigating what was it? Navigating the last 15 years as a garden writer. Or a decade, or I don't even remember what it was. But I've been doing this since 2009, which is what, 16 years? 17 years? God, I
Mm.
can't even do math now. That's how elderly
Yeah,
I am.
that goes quickly.
Yeah, and a lot has changed, but it was very cool, and it was cool to see pictures of my garden. Wow, your garden looks so much better in a magazine than it does in real life, let me just tell you that. Your dog looks better in a magazine than it does in real life. Badger was in it, and he didn't look like half the scruff monster he is. So, hashtag reality. Good.
So yeah, pick up that, issue of Horticulture Magazine and read all about Marianne. So we talked about attitude, but let's also talk about things that, that are more realistic. You what did Shakespeare say? "Nothing is either good or bad, thinking makes it so." So if you have a good attitude, that will help you, but you're gonna be walking by some parts of your garden more often than not, and if those look scruffy to you, if they're bringing you down, those are the ones to work on. Those are the ones where you can say, "Huh, I really, nothing's looking good here. Let's buy a few pansies or snapdragons if you don't have a terrible rabbit problem like I do, or just clean it up if some cropped perennials, and hopefully you have a few evergreens thrown in there or shrubs, and a nice fresh layer of mulch and a good edge makes you feel good, then that's what you should do. Whatever it is that makes you happy, if you're saying to yourself, "Wow, I really wanna let some of this go because I've got other things I have to do. I know that ecologically, it's lovely to let things just be in fall," which is true, for the bugs. They will live much better if you're not if you're not in there removing every bit of place where they might make a nest. Still in all, it is your garden, and you should make yourself happy at the places that may or may not be bringing you down. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. The aesthetic over the last definitely over the last decade, and really it sort of started about 20 years ago for the new naturalist movement, the new perennial movement, is for more naturalism in gardens. And unfortunately, over the last 5 years, in some quarters, that gets very strident so that people feel guilty if they want to clean up in their garden because cleaning up is wrong and terrible and leave it for the bugs. But we can have both, and it's not wrong to want to clean your pathways of leaves. It's not wrong to want to blow little bits of sticks and detritus and sycamore bark off of your patio. Those things are like vacuuming a room. You have cultivated that. That's not a natural area. That path, that driveway, that patio, that deck, those aren't natural areas. That's like you put carpet down. So
Yeah.
go ahead and vacuum the carpet. And then you're all of the sudden you're going to suddenly see those other areas for the beautiful decay that they are showing you. And you don't have to clean them up completely, but you're going to feel more like, hey, I've sort of claimed my space a little bit because all of that that's coming down from those trees or that has come down or is getting blown around really it can really weigh heavily on your shoulders. It just makes you feel just a little bit chaotic.
You know what else makes me feel, that weighs heavily on my shoulders? See my shoulders going down?
What?
When I'm cleaning up my tiny terrace, and it's it is so tiny, um, I see a spider web and I'm like, "Again, no, I'm sorry. This is my spot. This is where I sit and eat my lunch." And I feel terrible because spiders are wonderful, insects are wonderful. Well, maybe not those marmorated damn stink bugs, but and which are really enjoying my terrace these days. But everything it makes me feel sad, and yet I do it, and I just say to myself, "I could be a windstorm," because I am with my little Black& Decker, "and you have other places where you could build your nest, and I'm so sorry, bye-bye." And I do that because I don't wanna sit in a cobweb city. I really don't.
And those cobwebs get worse and worse and worse. And you could be a bird. You could have just eaten that spider. That's the way I look at it. I have left spider webs because I just want to let be sweet and wonderful to all the spiders around the door, around the light. And it just gets worse, and before you know it, you're Miss Havisham sitting in the room covered with spider webs, and it's not pretty. That does not mean that you need to go around spraying all your spiders or get your pest control out to take care of
No, no,
those
no.
clinically and suburbanly. Just taking a broom to
Is
them
that a
and
word?
bringing them down. Suburbanly, yes.
Yeah,
I've
okay.
made it up.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
It means the process of I was gonna say yellow pages, but those don't exist anymore, of finding a number, calling someone to take care of that for you, paying an ungodly amount of money, and then, "Oh, look, the problem's gone." No, I'm not telling you to do that. Just grab a broom and or grab a long pole with a little brush on the end of it and just go around and take those cobwebs down. You don't want them in your house. Do you need to have them
No.
on your patio or your porch? It does make a big difference. Those little acts of cleanliness.
Yeah.
And you know what? Go ahead and throw at us your hate mail if you disagree. I can handle it. Leslie can handle it.
So you said Miss Havisham, all I can think of is those ridiculous Halloween stores where they sell you cobwebs, and no, I have them for free, and I want to get rid of them. Oh, dear me.
Too bad you can't
Um
package them up and sell them.
One more thing before we go on, just besides the paths that you walk, that you use very frequently, don't forget about your views from outside. And if it's far away and it looks wonderful, and my eyesight's getting worse by the minute, so I'm not going to really fuss. But if it's like, wow, I sit by this window and I see something that I don't like, go out and fix it. Go out and make it look better. But then again, like we said, it is better to be a good steward of your land, to not clean up every inch if you can stand it. Still, I believe that you should make yourself happy. It is a cultivated place. Wait, is that the name of a podcast?
It is Jennifer Jewell's podcast, Cultivating Place.
Go listen to
Great
that. No,
one.
no, stay here with us. Stay here with us.
Listen to that too.
Yes, listen to that too.
I was on that podcast back in the day for Big Dreams, Small Gardens many years ago. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, cool. Oh, nice. I
yeah.
like that. All right. So next one, battery operated blowers in convenient locations.
Yes. I got a battery operated blower, I don't know, 10 years ago, and it's still going strong. It's the Ego series. And I ended up, leaving it by my front door behind a little door that you can't quite see so that I can use it whenever I think, "Oh, man, the leaves are getting really bad," and I wanna just blow them off of that pathway, and again, it's almost an instant, "Oh," your eyes go away from the pathway and look at the rest of the flowers that are still blooming here and there or the foliage that's gorgeous because you just blew that pathway. Making it convenient is huge. It's like leaving a little perennial spade up by the front door and a little spade down by your vegetable garden. When you can grab something and take care of it quickly, it makes a big difference. And a little battery operated blower that just turns on when you turn it on. Keep your battery pack somewhere close that you can charge it too.
Yeah. I must say, though, I totally agree with you. I'm a bit of a neatnik. I grab those things. I have one on each level of my tiny house, and I will be like, "Yep, it's time to get rid of some things to make myself feel good."
Too, how
I remember
profligate.
distinctly. I distinctly remember going to some friend's house for dinner years ago, and it was high fall. It was one of those days where, leaves are falling now. Right when you're hearing this, depending on where you live, it could be one of those things where you can barely see the sky because they're all coming down at once. We have about a week of, wait, is there going to be room for more of them down here? Because I see more in the trees and they're all down here already. They come down and they really accumulate. And I remember it was that time of year, and Jeff and I showed up for a dinner party and we rang the front doorbell, and I'm standing in front of a nice big house and I see 0 leaves, no leaves, which would be impossible because I see leaves coming down. Like, it's as if they've hired somebody to sweep them away before, like, since the last guest rang the doorbell and we showed up. It was eerie and not comforting. I like a few leaves, so we're not terrible neatniks. I mean, you would agree, like, you gotta have some leaves, right? They're kinda pretty.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying, "Oh my god, a leaf, get rid of it." No,
Right.
not at all. I'm just saying that besides around here, I'm not gonna be doing this every 5 minutes. I'm gonna do it, and maybe in a day or 2, I'm gonna do it again, perhaps, if I'm really on my game, but no, not super crazy neatness. Again, as your attitude is really important. Relax.
Yeah.
Chillax, baby.
So tell me about what you do with leaves in your beds. It probably depends on the bed. Give us the tea.
It totally depends on the bed. So the woodland garden, sort of the sunken garden area, the leaves fall, they stay. It is a wonderful, beautiful, organic, soft, rich soil that I want all of that for the mertensia and the galanthus coming up in the spring. And that's the aesthetic that is right for that, right? What is a woodland garden without leaves falling on it?
Yeah.
But in other areas, like I have a hellebore bed that is down by the chickens, and I'm gonna be pulling leaves off of that by the end of the month. And that's sort of pre-pulling them off, and I'll probably do some mulching. Once all of the winds have finished moving leaves around and they've sort of crammed into their corners or wherever they're gonna be, then I'll probably lift those leaves and put them in a compost, well, not a compost pile, but a leaf mold pile, so they can break down. I can use them elsewhere for my soil. But, I wanna be able to see those hellebores, and I wanna be able to see the beginnings of those bulbs, and the issue with waiting is that I have a lot of early bulbs coming up, and I will trample them trying to pull some of those leaves off. And I'm sorry, not sorry, but I do not like the look of all of those bulbs coming up through leaves, and it's just I don't love that look.
And sometimes they can't.
Sometimes you've got that piece of sycamore bark and it's gone up through the hole and it's like twisted, and I just don't want to deal with that in those areas. So that's what I'll do. Other beds, I will just sort of move them a little bit underneath the bigger shrubs and make sure that there's a good layer of mulch down, which is compost for me. It's just a sort of a composted bark material. So it's different for every bed, and I think you have to do what works for you. I don't advocate taking off every single leaf out of your property and then putting mulch back on it. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. A lot of times I'll just put mulch on top of some of the leaves. How about you?
Same. When I had the big woodland garden, I would simply blow the leaves off the paths. I did have some cute little bulbs coming up, and, by the time, so the leaves would settle over the winter. In February, I would start to say to myself, "Oh, let us just, push these back a little bit and make sure that I can see my little guys coming up in a month or 2, or in a week or 2 if you're, if they're snowdrops." I would have really taken the trouble to remove leaves and actually chop them up and put them back at some stages of my gardening career. That was earlier when I had time, more time than sense, probably. It's a good look, and it is free mulch. It's a better look than the whole leaves, and it degrades really fast, and it feeds your soil really fast, but it's time-consuming, and there are always sticks in there. I would put them literally in a big plastic tub and use my string trimmer, my strimmer, to break them up. Yeah, I don't think that's a great use of time.
Yeah, it's probably not a great use of time. And, there's this little buzz now about the use of these string trimmers creating more microplastics sitting
Oh,
around
yeah.
in the soil.
Yeah.
And so technically you're sort of adding some plastic to your wonderful organic mix. And I have no real thoughts on that one way or the other right now because I haven't dug deep into it, but it is back here in the back of my mind. I'm thinking about it. I love my string trimmer. So I feel like it'll be wrested out of my cold dead hands, but there's a possibility that that it could be causing some problems.
Not to mention the fact that I'm trimming every insect that wanted to live in those leaves, so it was not a good ecological move. It was a good move, well, unless you consider the one of the points was feeding the soil quickly. So you're talking microbes versus insects, and you're talking microplastics versus my time. I don't do it anymore, but
Mhm.
it was a better look than whole leaves. I am happy with whole leaves, but I do live in an HOA now, so I do not have whole leaves in the front, and I have them where I can in the back. I'm so lucky that I have in this tiny little garden no one can see it except for not even Jeff unless he goes over to the window. So I can leave it as messy as I want. However, I do like that neat thing, but I use leaves and then I put mulch over them. So they're there and they're feeding my soil. I do kind of like a neat look, and I have to have a neat look in the front. So, oh well. Could I ask a question? Just wondered, so I know you have a compost pile. You do harvest compost, but you said you were making a separate leaf mold pile? Yes?
Yeah, I
How do you do that?
you just pile a bunch of leaves on top of each other. It's not rocket science. And the more leaves you have, the more you pile. It's not just leaves. I'm not a purist. If I have little tiny bits of things, little bits of detritus, that'll go on that pile too. And I'm actually, it's sort of get there's so much of it, and it takes a while to break down that it's sort of in a long, not cylindrical, but it's in a long mound, just sort of along the edge of my creek, and it's actually creating a little bit of a berm that
Oh,
I may end up just planting some ferns into rather than actually taking and using in other parts of the garden like I have. Sometimes I will use the leaf mold, which is just basically broken down leaves. I will take it from the bottom and I'll use that along with my garden loam, my turf, and some grit and some composted bark to create my own potting soil. The
oh,
loam is
nice.
sterilized, the leaf mold's pretty clean, and it's a cheap way to make soil. In fact, I'm doing that tomorrow
How do you sterilize it? Do you use a
in a
oven?
turkey roaster. Yeah, in a turkey roaster that's outside in it's in my greenhouse, but it could be in my potting shed. And it takes, I think, 18 quarts. I got it at a Goodwill. It's one of those big turkey roasters, and it's an old Montgomery Ward one. It works beautifully, and you can pull, if you're doing it, get one that has the insert that you can pull it out easily, and it makes a good amount of soil, and I mix that in equal parts with the composted bark, which is sort of our municipal compost, and grit.
That
And then
sounds
I add a little bit of fertilizer and I add some leaf mold and just sort of play with it depending on what I want to do. It's much heavier soil. It's not your light peat or your coir or that type of thing. It's heavier, but the plants grow well in it for me and it's cheap.
How long do you roast it? How long you roast your turkey?
How long do I roast my turkey? A couple hours, bringing it up to about 83 degrees over the course of an hour, but it usually takes a while to get up to that temperature. I'm pretty sure it's 83. I always have to write it down to the right of of the turkey roaster because I always forget.
We obviously are talking centigrade and not Fahrenheit.
We are talking centigrade, yes, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You're so British. You're so
I think it's
darn
like
British.
145,
Okay.
125. I don't remember. Again, it's written in marker. I'll have to take a picture of it right next to my turkey roaster. You'd think it would stick in my brain, but there are a lot of numbers in my brain at any one time. So
Sorry, one more question. I'm just so enamored of compost, and we haven't done a compost episode because you haven't let
no, we
me,
haven't.
so this is how I'm trying to get uh,
What?
I'm sure we'd lose some listeners if we tried to do a compost episode. Actually, let's ask the people. Let's ask the people. People,
Let's
tell
ask
us if
people.
you would want a compost episode so that Leslie will feel really good talking about one of her favorite topics. But when you go to heat to 83 degrees centigrade, is that to kill seeds or is it to kill
It's kill
seeds, I guess is my
seeds.
only. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. So
it's to kill weed seeds. It's hopefully not to destroy the biome of
microbes.
the soil, which yeah, there's lots
Yeah.
of stuff in there and I'm sure a few of them get toasted. But it's
Mhm.
not to create completely dead soil. And on just for the record, on my turkey roaster, it's at its lowest setting. It has a whole bunch of settings like that go up to I don't know, 400 degrees or something, and it's at its absolutely lowest setting to make that, and to make that degrees, and I use a instant read thermometer so I can see, what it actually is. It's just like when you're barbecuing, you pull that lid off and put it in there and, okay, and take it out. But you could also get one of those ones that just keeps the probe in there, and then it alarms you when it's, up to the temperature, but I was just using what I had.
Yeah. I used a microwave oven for a while when I was actually doing that sort of thing. I really didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I didn't want weed seeds. It was very unscientific, but I'm just like, let's say 10 minutes. Let's try that. So I think your method sounds a little bit more based on reality.
I think it's supposed to be for again, all of this is written down because, like, I'm baking, I'm doing that I can't even remember how long a pizza takes to in the oven anymore. Um, so this year, for the first time, I did a little side-by-side experiment working with some Ruellia cuttings that I had growing in a peat-based basic LP Pro mix. I think it's LP. I don't remember, but a good quality mix. And then one that was with 3 parts with just grit and compost, meaning the composted bark and loam, garden loam, which is just basically garden soil. And then I did one with 4 parts, which had the leaves in it as well. And I watched these cuttings, which were exactly the same size as when they went in. The Pro Mix had some fertilizer in it, but not a lot. And so I thought I'd just see how they did without anything extra from me. And the Pro Mix had a faster result. Like they went taller, but I was taking them out and looking at their roots as well. And root development on all 3 of them was really good. The 2 that were in my soil mix, the one that had the composted leaves was a little bit bigger. The one that didn't wasn't. Those 2 were very, heavier to pick up, because 'cause they've
Mhm.
got a lot of rocks in them. Basically. They have grit in them. But they were all healthy, and yes, the whatever it is, the commercial mix had a slightly taller plant in those what in the very beginning, but it all caught up in the end. So, I was pretty happy with that and intend to keep doing it because it saves me money.
Oh, yeah.
And that means I will probably even for the garden loam that I'm putting in there, I'll probably use old potting soil as well if I don't wanna go dig up some loam in one corner of the garden. Because if you're in a small garden, it's not easy to go find some garden soil. You're gonna have to dig a
Oh,
hole
no.
somewhere, and then you got a
And
hole that
and
maybe it
in
didn't
my
want.
tiny garden, it's really not an option at all because this is Virginia red
Yeah.
clay, and it's some of it has some plastic bits that somebody dug in. Some of it has some netting that somebody must have put down thinking that it would help sod. I mean, every time I dig up plastic. So I'm improving the soil in two ways. One is adding organic material. The other is removing plastics. It's weird. Hey, one more thing about leaves. I used to love mowing my lawn. Jeff and I would fight over it. We don't do that anymore because we're old people living in an HOA. But we would just mow the leaves into the grass. And if, at that time of year where they're coming down fast and furious, that might not work. And leaves do smother turf lawn, and so you don't want to do that. But a little sprinkling is actually really good, and it sort of disappears in there by and by. If it drives you crazy, and you do mow your own lawn, you might wanna consider using a bag on your we had a bag, so we would pick it up, and then I would take my chopped up leaves that I haven't used my strimmer on. I had my chopped up leaves that I love, and I would put them, I'd spread them out as if to spread mulch. It was really satisfying. If you have a business that comes in and does that sort of thing for you, they're not the boss of you. You could have a chat with them and just say, "Hey, I actually like my leaves, and let's talk about how we can build up some good soil on this property by leaving them where and when, because when they come down fast, they might not be able to, but where and when it's practical."
They can kill the grass, or kill maybe a strong word. They can kill
Suffocate
it
it.
if it's a light, they can suffocate it, and then what happens is your weed seeds take over. So, this leave the leaves stuff is, I have words, but I don't wanna use them. Um, it's too simplistic. Things that work in memes are very rarely true. They sound true, they're cute, they're easy to share, but there's usually a little more nuance than that, and Leave the Leaves is one of them. So, yes, I do the same thing. We mulch up the leaves with the lawnmower that's on the lawn. In fact, Mike and I used to go back and forth on it. I really wanted to collect them and have my big leaf mold pile. He wanted to not have to collect them. It made sense for the grass to just get them chopped up, and he'll go over. We live in a woodland, sort of an edited woodland, and he'll go over all this open turf that's not managed one species grass, and I don't even know where the leaves have gone when he's done. He has usually just a couple little stripes down the middle, and somehow those magically disappear, but they've gone into the soil.
Uh-huh.
And because we're not trying to cultivate a wildflower meadow, and that's quite good to be getting nutrients back into the soil for the grass, we're good. So, yes, Leave the Leaves, a little more complicated than that, folks. And if you're going to be led by memes, you're going to be led by the nose like this.
Leaves
So,
are free compost, but they look messy. They can look messy, and they can kill your turf grass if you want that. And there's no reason that you should have to sit on them when you're having a cup of coffee on your patio. So
yes. All right. So remember those editing skills, everybody, that we talked about back in the late summer garden? Well, they can be used for good right now. Just because you want to keep those seed heads, you want to keep those berry clusters, doesn't mean that nature is offering you the absolute best looking seed heads and berry clusters. And you may want to do a little bit of editing. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Yeah. I mean, and again, it's your garden. Just do what makes you happy. Keep in mind that the more seed heads you can keep up that make you happy are probably feeding some birds. And they can look really cool, especially if a light frost settles on them. They can look beautiful. Snow, well, perennials probably won't hold up under snow, but things can look beautiful with a light layer of snow on them. It's just a matter of doing what makes you happy. And also, it helps if you are not attacking it like all in a weekend. If you go about it like, oh, I want to do this area today, or oh, I want to do that area later. And it could be some warm December or January day. You're kind of sick of looking at something that you thought was pretty a few months ago and it's just not anymore. Do it then. People say that you shouldn't clean up your perennial beds, especially the perennials that have hollow stems, because we have so many native bees that can use those to nest. I've heard Heather Holm, who is a really good speaker on the subject. She wrote a couple of different books on bees and wasps, and so somebody said to her, "So when do you clean that stuff up?" And she said, "You don't." Or she said, "I don't." And then I've heard from others that you could clean it up in spring, after May or, depends on where you live. I think it's your garden. I think you do what you can for the environment, including, feeding your soil with leaves if you can, and, I think that you just take away what is making you unhappy gradually or all in one weekend, whatever you wanna do.
Yeah, somewhere, I'm not sure when it happened, but the idea of being a naturalist sort of became part of being a gardener. Just because you're a gardener does not mean that you have to be the world's greatest naturalist. Of course, we want to encourage these insects in our garden, and you don't want to go through there and get rid of all of their habitat. But you also, many of you, and I am one of you, want to have an attractive looking garden that makes you smile. It makes you happy, as Leslie says. And so that means taking those secateurs in your hands and sort of using them as a brush to paint and to erase and where you need to. And so if you have this lovely stand of echinacea and it's got a whole bunch of beautiful seed heads that are standing up, but 3 of them are sort of at a crazy angle and a couple of them are, halfway down, you can cut those. You're not going to go to hell for cutting those and removing them and putting them on your compost pile. Now, if you put them in a bag on the corner of your sidewalk for somebody else to take away and be somebody else's problem instead of having a compost pile, yes, you might be going to hell. But if if you have your own compost pile and you're using that stuff, then there's nothing wrong with that. And tidying up those berry clusters that you thought were so beautiful and now they're sort of gone because the birds have eaten half of them. You can cut those little what are the holders of the berry clusters? I
You
don't
can
know.
cut
The holders
the
of the berry
holders of the berry
of the
clusters.
berry
Yes, that's the
clusters. The
botanical term.
stems, also known as stems. Good lord. Oh, man, it's hard to see people get old. So just go around and play a little bit with your editing. Use those editing skills in your garden to clean it up here and there. It doesn't have to be huge. And it's not wrong to want to, make it a little bit pretty and make it artistic. Believe me, some of those big gardens, especially if they've got the staff, they're going around and they're playing a little bit and they're making it look just right. Just the right amount of seed heads and just the right amount of berries.
And if the right amount of berries is for you, all of them, whether they're at an angle or not, fallen down or not, you
Mhm.
do you. So
You do you.
you do you. I think that one of the best ways we can put lipstick on this pig is to attend to our containers. Now you're probably starting to bring some things inside. If you had your first frost, then you've lost those petunias. You've said goodbye to them for the year. So you can do some shopping, and that can be, depending on where you live, pansies, snapdragons, and you can sink some bulbs in those pots and give yourself a nice surprise next spring. Pat yourself on the back. "Oh, I did that. I don't even remember that I did that, and yet here they come." That's what it's like to get old. It's wonderful sometimes. 51st dates.
Yes, don't forget ornamental cabbages and kales. Sometimes if I've got some nasty ivy that's just, I could never get rid of in one of my beds, I say beds, but one of the natural areas, I'll pull that up and, put it in a pot, and because it's a lovely trailing look, I might as well use it for good and then discard it when it's dried and finished, but it can be used going forward into the holiday season as well. So there's a lot of different things you can use. You can cut things from your garden for those containers, your hydrangea heads, your grass, the inflorescences of the grasses, some of the grasses themselves, things like miscanthus in particular. If you have some miscanthus sitting around, you can cut those blades, and as they brown, they do tend to curl, and that's a
Oh,
very
fun.
cool look. Yeah, that's a very cool look. So that one that's in your grandfather's urn, maybe you can.
Maybe I could
I
do that.
like
They're pretty
that.
crispy. When I ran my business, we would actually get permission from people who had good collection of grasses, and we would cut the inflorescences and make something that would have looked like a sheaf of wheat and put a wooden stake down the middle of it, use twine, and so it becomes this thing that you could stick in the middle of a pot and surround it by hydrangea heads or evergreens and something, quite lovely, or, berries that a lot of which were from the client's own property that they wouldn't have seen up close. It's very you can get very creative and fun with it.
You're offending me a little bit with the putting it in the center of the pot. I tend to wanna go a little
Yeah, well,
asymmetrical.
that's you.
Just a little bit off, like 2 inches off,
That's
instead of the
you.
center thing. Yeah, I know. You do you. I'll do
You
me.
do, yeah. All right. Oh, I see that you put in the notes to, purchase garnish. Let's talk about high-end fake berries. Come on, really?
Yeah, you know what? I went to a wonderful, symposium with the Digging In guys and girls up in Philadelphia many years ago, and those are professional container gardeners. We went on our trip to Cornwall with 4 of them.
Mhm.
They do this for a living, and they're doing very, very high-end homes, and there are a few little bits and pieces that they will buy to put in there, and they are high-end, like a big not raceme of berries. Why am I always having a problem with this?
Stem? A
A
cluster.
cluster of berries. The main thing is when you're looking at these things and deciding, "Do I buy this? Do I not?" Think about what this plant looks like in nature. Look at the
Hmm.
color. Is it realistic? Look at the berry size. Is that realistic? And the more you're working towards something that maybe could be is not entirely unlike the thing that you wanted to have in there and will last a lot longer, you're on the right track. And you don't want to use too many of those. And you can also use other ornaments like, this time of year, pumpkins and gourds that, immediately get soft spots because we picked them in September. But that type of thing to ornament those containers a little bit more.
I had fun with my grandchildren the other day. We put together fall pots, and then I got called away. They had a million pumpkins. This is a family with 4 kids, and my son said, "Could you just, when you come back later, could you just arrange them in a nice way on the porch?" Jen doesn't have any interest in it, and I know I'm not good at it. And so I got there and I said, "Oh, I'll go have a look." And I'm like, "Perfect. You did perfectly." And it was, I think I would have shifted 1 or 2 things, but he was so thrilled. He's like, "I did that right?" And I'm like, "What's right? You did it so that it looks good. It looks good to you, looks good to me." So, lipstick on a pig. I mean, looks good to you, looks good to me.
That's right. And remember to group those containers if you can. If you don't have big ones, then to group them into little bits. Don't just have little containers all over the place. It's better to put them in a big group. And that is lipstick on a pig.
Absolutely. We have a new subscriber to One More Sip of the Garden Mixer, our committed community, Elaine Maury Edelson. Thank you very much for upgrading your subscription. And we just want to remind you that if you want to do that, you go to Substack, you read fabulous notes for our regular big podcasts that you're listening to now, and then you can be a paid subscriber and get our biweekly One More Sip of the Garden Mixer. Also, don't forget that we're on YouTube. We are one of the very few podcasts that actually, I illustrate what we're talking about, and I put in slides of almost every plant that I can find, so that you can see what we're talking about. And the last thing that we wanted to mention is if you have the time to go to where you listen to podcasts and leave us a review, it would be lovely. And thank you so much for listening. Let's move on to Damn, I Wish I Planted That.
This is the part of the show where we talk about a specific plant that is doing its thing right now in the garden. And it may have also done something in your garden in the early part of the season or the later part of the season. But right now, it looks great. And you may be walking past it in somebody else's garden and wishing, oh, damn, I wish I'd planted that. So for you, Leslie, what's it going to be this time?
I have chosen the Ilex verticillata, which is the winterberry, and I have gardened this plant before in clients' gardens, but I've never had it in my own garden before. I didn't plant it. I inherited some good plants in this tiny little garden, and that is one of them. And I recognized it when I moved in 2 years ago, and I proceeded to say, "You know what? We're just going to skip next year's berries. We're gonna cut out next year's flowers because you are too big." And I did, and it was just a green blob all year long, and then, I don't think I had to prune it again. I shouldn't have had to prune it again. I did quite a good job the first go, and it has rewarded me with a very symmetrical view from a particular window where I sit a lot. I'll just say it, it's the loo, and
Also known as the restroom.
I have this beautiful view of a very well pruned, thank you very much, former self, and, it's just looking fabulous. No birds have attacked it yet, they will. So just some specs on this in case you don't know. This'll get big, and I won't let mine get big because I do live in a tiny garden, 6 to 9 feet tall. It's a four-season plant, but really this is the only thrilling season that it has in the fall. Nice green foliage, white flowers, which are sort of hard to see actually, and it's a green blob in the summer. But starting in late September, it's kind of a showstopper of red, which I don't love in the garden, red in general, but I love this. This is great. It'll grow in sun and part shade. It is native to the United States, and it will grow on riverbanks because it can tolerate wet soil, which is wonderful. It can sucker and spread. That might be good. Might not be good for me, might be good for you. Birds love these berries. It's dioecious, so only the female will berry, and you need to get a male in there somewhere, which I recognize as like, oh, that must be the male because it's not berrying. I do have, I think, two or three of them on that hillside, and you only need one male for a harem of up to 10 females.
Less said about that, the better. And very cultivar specific too.
Oh, okay, so I really don't know what I have. So what's your experience with this plant and being cultivar specificity?
Meaning that don't just get any female that is bearing at your local garden center and then say, "Oh, and here's a male." They really need to pair. So, for instance, I grow winter red and winter gold, and which is actually more of an orange. The Southern Gentleman is the cultivar that is blooming at the same time as they are, and that's why it's cultivar specific. It's not because they don't get along with each other, but because the bloom needs to be at about the same time. And those, Southern Gentleman can also pollinate a whole bunch of others. It's not as if the the bees are doing the pollination, obviously, but it's just like with apples. You can't be growing something that's an early bloom and trying to cross pollinate with something that's a much later bloom because you won't have that cross pollination. So just be aware and ask the staff at your nursery, is this the right cultivar for this? I haven't had that sucker for me that much because I have them in such a dry location, and
Ah,
they do berry well, and they are beautiful. For those of you who are not on YouTube, these are the berries that you look at in sort of a craft store and think,
yeah.
"Oh, yeah."
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, they look unreal. They're all clustered along the stem. They're beautiful, and you can get them in red and gold and orange, and oh, yeah, they're gorgeous and big and little.
I thought it was ironic that I did a berry thing when I usually are like, yeah, berries, meh." But no, these are talking to me. Looks great. What's
Yeah.
yours?
And I'm really glad that you're using your loo instead of your outside space, so points for that too.
People who listen to the Cornwall Chronicles will know what that's about.
Yes, you will. Mine is a witch hazel, Hamamelis Rochester. And it's because it has such a beautiful yellow fall foliage and it tends to hold on to those leaves, which is a bad thing in some cases, like in the spring when it's competing with the blossoms, or more like the late winter. But it's a really good thing when you have a lot of windstorms in the fall and everything else is losing its leaves, but Rochester is holding on to them, and they are brilliant yellow. This is a 9 to 12 foot witch hazel. For those of you who are looking for a small tree to grow in your landscape, whether you have a big property or little property, witch hazels are the way to go. And it's not the only one that has beautiful fall color. It just does hold on to its leaves a while. So you're pretty much guaranteed of having something around this time in November. It also has one of the best fragrances that you can find on a witch hazel, and many is the time in February where I'm sort of moving around, taking leaves and things at its base, and I'm just knocked over by the sun hitting that late winter sun, hitting those beautiful orange spidery blossoms and just releasing scent. It's absolutely fantastic. I have got the zones on here. It's 5 to 8. And a lot of witch hazels are, pretty good with that kind of hardiness. For some people, holding on to its leaves is a deal breaker. And I used to feel that way, and then I was at Nancy Goodwin's Montrose garden. This was many years ago, maybe 15 years ago. She had a huge one, and it was in bloom in that orange red with this tawny colored leaves that it was holding on to, and it was stunning. And I thought, never thought about, you're just thinking, "Oh, you're ruining the show with your leaves." And they're like, "No, when you get to this kind of size, you can see the blossoms, you can see the leaves, and there's sort of a backdrop." And Nancy said that in the old days, she used to go and clip off every leaf with her scissors, and then she finally gave
Oh,
up. I know, no, she really did. She finally gave up, but I said, "You know what? This is beautiful the way it is." So I've learned to be a little bit, less punctilious about needing to have all of those leaves off your hamamelis. This one was named for the park or for the, area in which it grew in Rochester, New York. It was a chance seedling, and, it's really beautiful. I don't think you grow any witch hazels. I'm trying to remember, Les.
no, I did. I tried a few at my old garden, and had to be sort of talked into it by various sources because I'm like, don't love that flower. Sort of looks a little, like,
In the winter, how big did they get? Did you allow them to get bigger, or did you ruthlessly
I
pull them
really
out?
went to it so late. There would have been 2 near that staircase going down from the kitchen. um, I called it the slab, which is such a attractive word where we would sit and look out over the garden. Uh, very variegated leaves. I did, and I can't remember the name of just a little one, but I really was like, "Yeah, I'm not in love with this plant." So it would because I live in such a small place now, I wouldn't make room for it, but I'll come see yours.
Okay, I've got a lot of them, and I had to be I had to be cajoled on this one too. It was a trip up to Rare Fine Nursery, I think up in New Jersey, if I remember correctly, at where they were growing them. They're not anymore on that level, I don't think, but they had a witch hazel festival, and I had not realized how beautiful they can be. There's a lot of things actually that I have been cajoled into and then gone, "What was I thinking that I didn't like this?" If you've
Yeah.
got big enough ones in the landscape and you do these splashes of color in a very specific design way, wow, you're happy in February and in January and in March. And yeah, with all of these little hellebores at their feet, oh my goodness, so beautiful. But that's for
So beautiful.
later. This is for garden mixers in the not so far away future.
That's right.
I think we wrap this up. We put lipstick on this pig, Les. I think we go forth and make your fall gardens beautiful because that potential is lurking within all of them. And don't be afraid to blow your leaves.
Don't be afraid to blow your leaves. We'll see you next time.